we have Brian Alvin Hananto from Universitas Pelita Harapan from Indonesia. He'll be talking about method experimentation on display typeface design based on visual cultural artifacts. So I now request Brian to take over, and please keep it to 15 minutes. So we will have the question answer session at the end. Yeah. So thank you. Please, over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will share my screen. In Indonesia, it's already evening, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Brian Alvin Hananto. I'm from Indonesia, from Universitas Pelita Harapan. Please excuse my pronunciation because, yeah, English isn't my native language. So perhaps if my language is unclear, please tell me or give me some questions so I can answer in the Q&A session. So my presentation today is about the method experimentation on display typeface design based on visual cultural artifacts. So before I want to start my presentation, I would like to introduce properly about myself. My name is Brian Alvin Hananto. Currently, I work at Universitas Pelita Harapan, which is where I also graduate from. My thesis in master's degree is about typographical patterns implemented in cultural artifacts. So that's one of my interests in typography, started because of that project. And myself, actually, this is not the first time I'm acquainted with Typo Day. Last year, I also joined Typo Day. I submitted a paper, but it wasn't accepted. And I also submitted a poster, which it was selected. And this year, I also submitted another poster and a paper, which thankfully both was submitted, accepted. So here I am today. So to give a context, my paper is actually about my research and experience on teaching typography in my university. So the focus of the research is to try to develop a method in which students can learn and also try to design a typeface based on a certain methodology that is developed on my research. So maybe I would like to skip over this part because actually this part is just to give a context, and since all of us here already know about typography, so maybe I will not dive deep enough talking about the relationship between typography, technology, and also society. But I want to focus on talking about vernacular and also vernacular objects and vernacular design. So as we know, vernacular is like the dialect on language in which people with similar language but different dialects can have different characteristics and also traits. Vernacular in design is not only seen as just an object in which, for example, in typography, sometimes people say vernacular typography is like the characteristics of lettering or scripts or also signage that is design. But in design, we can also see vernacular as a source of inspiration and reference for design. And one of the reference on cultural and vernacular design can also be seen from cultural artifacts. Cultural artifacts are not only objects or something that we can see. It is also something that we conduct or we do our activity, our rituals, but also other than the objects itself. So these kind of things are then chosen by the students to become their source materials for designing a display typeface. Why do the students are asked to design a display typeface? Because first of all, the students were not taught to be type designers. They're taught to be visual communication designers and also graphic designers. And type designer itself has certain skill sets that are quite technical and quite detailed. And in the class, we only want to introduce them about the basics and did not want to focus more on the technical aspect, but more on the methodology and also conceptual framework of designing a typeface. So the research itself is actually a classroom action research in which me, myself, as the lecturer, try to implement research to try to develop a teaching method for the student itself on learning how to design a typeface. So this is actually my second year, my second cycle on this research. The first cycle was last year when the pandemic started, and then I tried to design a typeface in a certain project, and I tried to make the typeface to deconstruct the typeface design project as a methodology, and then I want to try to implement it on students itself. So in this classroom action research second cycle, I tried to ask the students to design a typeface using the framework or the method that I had already developed previously in the first cycle. So the design method itself is actually very simple. First, we have the students are asked to find a particular artifact, and then the students are asked or tasked to extract visual elements or structures that they can find from the vernacular artifact. From the visual elements or the structure itself, the students are asked to build a typeface, a structure or a basis for the design of the typeface itself. And then after the typeface is done, the students are asked to implement the typeface on type specimens, poster designs, and etc. So there's three typefaces that I would like to share to you all in this presentation. The first typeface is called Manatiang. Manatiang is derived from the tradition in Padang. It's a area in Indonesia. It's a area in Indonesia in which they have a certain characteristic in a restaurant in which the people that serve food they hold the plates in a particular fashion in this kind of things. So the plate is stacked diagonally in this manner, and this is one of the characteristics or vernacular characteristics of Padang itself. So the students then try to implement this to design a display typeface. By taking the shape of the plates, they try to deconstruct it and use it as a module, in which the module is then implemented on designing the typeface. So they try to design the typeface and then implement the modules to give a characteristic that represents the plates from the Padang itself. And then the second typeface is called Malangka, which is derived from a cultural house in Toraja. It's called Tongkonan, in which the architecture of the house itself has three distinct structure of layer, and in which these three structures, the Ratiang, Kale, Bauna, and Sulubanwai, is translated into proportion or structure of the typeface. So they implement the structure and also implement visual elements such as the roof, the characteristic of the stair, the gates, and then the foundation rocks, and implement it on the typeface. And the third typeface is called Singkawang, in which Singkawang is actually a port city, a mining city in Borneo, Indonesia, in which there are many religions that are blended well together. And so the typeface itself wanted to try to implement the synergy and also the acculturation of the religions, and they try to choose to take various symbolisms and then also implement it in designing a typeface. From the symbolism they took, they try to divide it, not divide, they try to extract it into characters, anatomies of a typeface, in which they create the strokes such as the stamps, the bar, the terminal, the counter, etc. So from that, they try to compose a certain set of typeface, and yeah, this is elaboration of the anatomical itself. So this is probably just a summary on the three typeface, in which the first typeface, they try to, the source of the typeface itself is actually an object, a real object, the plate, in which the plate is a representation of the culture and vernacular of the area itself. The second typeface, Malangka's source is taken from a house, an architecture, the Tongkonan house. And the third typeface, Singkawang, source is actually a vernacular concept in which the Buddhist and Islam religion in that place is then abstracted. From the source, the first typeface extracts a visual module, in which the visual module is then transformed into a grid and to build the typeface. The second typeface is then extracted to a visual structure and also there are various visual features that is implemented into designing typeface itself. The third typeface implements the source and extracted into various shapes and also strokes for the typeface. The strokes is then used for stem, diagonal stem, bar, full, and also the terminal of the typeface. From all the three typeface, it is also implemented as a poster as shown in the screen right now. So this is the first typeface, the Manatiang typeface from the Padang. The second is the Malangka typeface, which is taken from the traditional house in Borneo. And the third one is Singkawang, in which they try to implement and showcase the various shapes and contours of the typeface. So this is the three typeface that is from the students in our class. There's more typeface and projects that is designed in class, but today I would like to share focus on these three typeface. So, okay, I think that's for my presentation tonight. Thank you very much for the time and the opportunity. I return it to the organizer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Interesting projects and interesting typefaces. So they are very much appropriate to the context and the culture. Yeah. So thanks for sharing it with us.